It is clear that gas corporations run the Australian Labor Party. It is so abundantly clear. Well, and there's three reasons why. We hear objections immediately. It feels like we maybe touched a nerve again. One, they let gas corporations get away with paying next to no tax. On income tax, Santos pays less income tax than anyone watching this at home. We also know that Santos last year wrote to the Labor Resource Minister asking for changes to environmental approvals to allow them to accelerate the approval of the Barossa gas project. And then Labor did just that, overriding the wishes of First Nations people and serious environmental concerns. Any other constituent in Australia would love to the idea that they could write to their minister and then immediately get what they want. What about all the people on JobSeeker writing to the minister asking for them to have their payments raised above the poverty line? All the people stuck on waiting lists, all the renters out there, they get ignored, but if you're the CEO of Santos, you get exactly what you want. We also know that this new gas strategy, of which every Labor member in this place should be deeply, deeply ashamed. I frankly do not know how anyone on that side of the House can sleep at night. Expanding gas production out past 2050 basically locks in catastrophic climate change. And one of the lies that perpetrated in this place, or these mistruths, is that Australia only has a small part to play when tackling climate change. Australia is one of the biggest exporters of fossil fuels in the world. In fact, one of the two countries that beat us is Saudi Arabia and Russia. Hardly wonderful company to have. So let's get this straight. The Labor Party now is going to spend public money expanding gas production out past 2050. Gas production, by the way, that produces methane that is 80 times more potent in warming the planet than CO2. They get away with paying next to no tax, and they're going to give them public money to do it. And they roll over when the Labor Resource Minister gets written to them by the CEO of Santos. It's incredible. Just on taxes, by the way, we're about to have a federal budget. So let's talk about taxes for a second. Over a 7-year period, Santos made $28.9 billion in income. They paid an effective tax rate on that of 0.02%. 0.02%. 82% of all the gas produced in Australia exported overseas. So really, what's remarkable about this, what is so destructive, is they are pursuing a gas strategy that allows large multinational corporations like Santos and Chevron and Woodside to export enormous amounts of gas overseas, pay no tax on it, destroy the planet and hurt everyone other than the CEOs of Santos and Woodside. That's who the Labor Party is picking. Let's think about Norway for a second, just because some members of this place will say, oh, it's very hard to tax gas corporations. Well, Norway manages it. Norway in 2023 there was $209 billion earned in the Norwegian gas industry in 2023. They paid an effective tax rate of 63%. In Australia, in the same year, gas corporations made $164 billion of revenue, but only paid a tax rate of that, plus royalties, of 9%. If those gas corporations in Australia paid the same tax rate as they do in Norway, then Australia would have earned in a single year, the Australian government would have earned an extra $88.8 billion in revenue. $88.8 billion of revenue. That would fund dental into Medicare, completely solve the housing crisis by funding a mass construction of public housing. We could coordinate a freeze on rent increases. We could make university education free. We could wipe student debt. We could raise poverty payments that the government forces people to live on JobSeeker above the poverty line. We could do all of that. We could fundamentally improve people's lives, and we could fund a transition plan out of coal and gas in the medium term. Instead, what this government is doing is raising more money off student debt than they are on gas taxes, expanding gas production out past 2050, approving coal mines that we mining coal out to 2070, and expecting Australians to put up with it. Functionally, what the Labor Party is doing in this place is acting as the political representatives of Woodside and Santos and the entire gas industry. Absolutely. And they are attempting to pull the wool over ordinary people's eyes to suggest that somehow they care about other Australians out here. But let's look at the evidence. Record low taxes for gas corporations that see Santos pay less percentage tax than a cleaner or a teacher or a nurse. They all pay a higher percentage tax rate than Santos does. Public money to help Santos and Woodside do what they want to do, expanding gas production and destroying the planet. And at the end of all of this, what do we get? The world scientists have said that warming is going to expand past 1.5 degrees. God only knows what's going to happen as the world surges past 2.5 and 3 degrees, and many members of this place won't have to be here to suffer the consequences.